Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about What If Deku Had a Hero's Heart Part 1. If you guys enjoy this What If and want to see Part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story TurtleWearingClothes from AO3. So let's start the video. Bakugou paced around the room, growling and clenching his fist. Where the F is he? Todoroki sighed and stood from his spot at the table. We should go check the track field. He might still be working out again. Bakugou let out a yell. He better not be. We told him to stop overworking himself. Todoroki shook his head and grabbed his jacket, then passed Bakugou his. Izuku doesn't know the meaning of overworking himself. He probably lost track of time and didn't realize he was late for dinner. That was, in fact, exactly what happened. Midoriya laid on the ground, arm over his eyes. After the increase in villain attacks, he knew that he had to 𝗵𝗲 for all as fast as he could, even if that meant training during all his free time. Groaning slightly, he got back up and started lightly jogging around the track. He glanced up and noticed it was starting to get dark. He froze, remembering how he, Katsuki, and Shoto made plans for dinner. Shoot! He didn't get to think anymore as a fist came down on his head, causing the green-haired hero to squat in pain. Ow, idiot Deku. What did we say about overworking yourself? Izuku looked up to see Bakugou standing over him, a scowl on his face. Todoroki stood nearby, shaking his head. I wasn't overworking. I was just going for a walk and lost track of time. Midoriya knew that that was a weak excuse, and he knew that the other two wouldn't believe him. Todoroki went over and helped Deku up. Izuku, you made us worry when you didn't show up for dinner in Katsuki's room. You can't keep pushing yourself so hard. Izuku sighed. I'm sorry. He shook his head. Never mind. So, is it too late for dinner? He smiled shyly. Katsuki growled. Stupid Deku with your stupid smile. He mumbled, blush on his cheeks. Todoroki smiled slightly. Let's go back. Katsuki made some pork cutlet bowls. Midoriya perked up, hearing the name of his favorite food. He immediately pulled Bakugou into a tight hug. Thank you, Kaken. Bakugou turned bright red and looked away, putting a hand on Izuku's head. Yeah, whatever. Midoriya groaned as he woke up, having a splitting headache. He snuggled back into someone he was guessing Todoroki's, 𝗧𝗓𝗧. The person he snuggled into started to gently petting his head. Midoriya relaxed slightly. It was definitely Todoroki. Hey, are you alright? You're feeling a little warm, Todoroki asked, gently putting his lips to Deku's forehead. Deku tried to answer, but he could only make weird groaning noises. Bakugou rolled over and pulled both of them into his grip. What's going on? Todoroki sighed. I think Izuku is sick. He can't talk and I believe he has a fever. Bakugou growled. This is what happens when you push yourself too hard. He sat up and sighed. You're staying here today. I'll make you some soup to eat during the day. Izuku turned to look at Bakugou. He shook his head and managed to mumble out, I can go. He coughed and curled up slightly. Bakugou in a breath, trying not to yell. No, you're staying here. Shoto will bring you notes and I'll make you food for the day. No arguing. Todoroki nodded and sat up, rubbing the green-haired teen. Don't worry, you can afford to skip a day. We'll let the teachers know. He bent down to kiss Midoriya's forehead, then got up to get ready. Don't let All Might know. Don't want to worry him. Midoriya got out, accepting his fate and curling up under the sheets. He was kinda glad that it was Bakugou's bed. It smelled like the fiery blonde, which helped him relax. And what should we tell him? That you're skipping class? Bakugou asked sarcastically. Midoriya did his best to glare, but it only ended up as a pout that sent arrows through his boyfriend's hearts. Even when he tried to be mad, he only succeeded in looking cute. Todoroki smiled slightly. Alright, we won't tell him. I'll think up a valid excuse because we know Katsuki can't. We have to get ready now though, so go back to sleep. Izuku nodded and closed his eyes, trying to go back to sleep. He knew that there was no point in protesting anymore because Kaken and Shoto would tie him to the bed just to make him stay. Well, Maybe not Shoto, but definitely Kachen. The other two got ready for school, including making soup for Midoriya to eat when he woke up. They then headed to school, walking close to each other. Bakugou. Todoroki. They paused and looked to see Uraraka running towards them with Ida. When they finally caught up, Uraraka looked around in confusion. Where's Izuku? Bakugou rolled his eyes. The idiot worked himself too hard and got sick. Ida started doing his notorious air chop. Bakugou. That is no way to talk about one of your boyfriends. That is upsetting to hear though that Midoriya overworked himself like that. I'll talk about him however I want. Bakugou yelled, his fingers having small explosions on them. Todoroki grabbed Bakugou's shoulder to calm him down. We need to get going if we're going to let All Might know Izuku is sick. Bakugou raised a questioning eyebrow at him. A father should know when his son is sick, was Todoroki's only response. Midoriya groaned as he started to wake. He still felt like SHT, but he felt better than earlier. He slowly sat up, squinting in the bright light. He carefully swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood. He was dizzy, but Midoriya managed to make his way to the bathroom to do his business, and take a quick cold shower while he was at it. After that he just put on a pair of boxers, that might have been Bakugou's, and slowly walked into the kitchen. On the stove was a big pot of what Midoriya assumed to be soup. He noticed a note on the counter and picked it up to read it. Deku, there is tomato soup in the pot. There are also some grilled cheese sandwiches in the oven. If they're cold, just heat them up. Just so you know, I won't be this nice the next time you overwork yourself, idiot. Izuku, please relax and try to get better today. Katsuki and I will handle telling people you're sick and getting the notes and homework for you. And don't worry about Katsuki, he's just worried. Love, Katsuki and Shoto. Midoriya smiled. I love those two. Todoroki and Bakugou sat near each other during class, passing notes back and forth while Aizawa-sensei talked about some famous heroes from the past. Bakugou was about to pass another note when it was snatched out of his hand. Oi, what the he dash? He looked up to see Aizawa-sensei standing above him, the note in his hand. Let's see what you and Todoroki found so important you've been passing notes. The hero opened the note and cleared his throat. I'm just so worried for that idiot. One of these days Deku is going to push himself to the point where he'll be unable to recover, and I don't know how I'll handle that. I really care about and love him. And you too. Bakugou turned bright red. Che. That was private. Todoroki also had a slight blush on his cheeks as the rest of the class awed and talked about how cute the three of them are. Aizawa-sensei shook his head and dropped the note on Todoroki's desk. While it's sweet that you two care about Midoriya, I don't want you two passing notes in my class. Besides, he's made it out of worse situations. He went back up to the front of the class and continued teaching. Bakugou spent the rest of the class hiding his flustered face. Midoriya shivered as he pulled the blankets tighter around him. He was currently on Bakugou's couch, watching the news. There was another villain attack, and this time Endeavor showed up. Midoriya frowned. If that JRK came near him, he would not be able to put up a nice act. There was a knock on the door, which confused Deku. Why would someone be knocking on Kaken's door during school hours? The boy got up and shambled to the door. If he wasn't already pale, he would have lost all of his color when he opened the door to see All Might standing there. All Might. Midoriya coughed and backed up to let the #1 hero in. Midoriya, my boy. I heard that you were sick, so I decided to take my break time to check in on you, All Might explained, setting down his bag and releasing his muscle form. Midoriya closed the door and looked at All Might curiously. Who told you I was sick? Todoroki let me know. It was Bakugou though that let me know why you were sick. All Might gestured for Midoriya to take a seat next to him on the couch, which Midoriya did. I know that things have been getting worrying with the increase of villain attacks, and I know you're feeling more pressured to MSR one for all, but you need to take things easy every once in a while. If you keep pushing yourself to the point of getting sick, then you will be of no use. Midoriya looked at the ground in shame. He silently cursed his boyfriends for telling All Might about this. He couldn't stand disappointing his mentor. I'm sorry, All Might. I need to be able to protect those I can reach. All Might patted his back. I know, but you need to know when it's time to take a break, alright? Midoriya nodded, still looking at the ground. Tears were starting to form, but he did his best to not let them fall. All Might sighed and glanced at the television. "What are you watching?" Midoriya quickly wiped his eyes and looked at the TV. There was another villain attack. 𝗵𝗲 showed up to take care of it. All Might nodded. "Soon, that will be you and your classmates on the news, defeating the villains. And you'll be the new #1 hero so that you can lead them. Isn't that right?" He smiled at the teen. Midoriya mustered up his best grin. "Yeah." When Bakugou and Todoroki went to check on Midoriya during lunch, they didn't expect to find All Might and Midoriya on the couch, with Midoriya snuggled into All Might's side, watching Moana. Midoriya perked up and smiled at the two. "Hey guys. All Might stopped by to take care of me, thanks to some people telling him that I was sick." He was smiling, but Bakugou and Todoroki could tell that he was not happy about them telling All Might. All Might, however, gave them a thumbs up. Todoroki went over and felt his forehead. "Your fever has gone down. That's good. And good fathers should know when their children are sick." Midoriya pouted. "I keep telling you, I'm not his illegitimate son." He started coughing due to his yelling. All Might raised an eyebrow. "That is true. Midoriya is not my biological son." Todoroki looked at them suspiciously. "Even if that's true, even if that's true, you guys act like father and son," Bakugou interrupted, carrying a tray of 4 bowls of tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches over to them. Midoriya blushed while All Might laughed and said, "I suppose we do. Truth be told, sometimes Midoriya is like the son I've never had." Midoriya turned completely red. "Ah, really?" He looked at All Might in awe, his eyes sparkling. "Of course. I would never lie." All Might grinned. "Except for the time you pretended to be a villain and kidnapped Shoto, causing Deku to break his finger trying to stop you," Bakugou reminded, almost looking down on the hero as he gave everyone a bowl of soup and a spoon, putting the grilled cheese sandwiches on the table. All Might hung his head in defeat. "Thank you for the soup." Midoriya chuckled while Todoroki smiled and Bakugou smirked. The four relaxed and ate lunch, talking about random things. All Might teased the three about being cute together, while Bakugou pointed out All Might's silly mistakes and yelled at him for teasing. After a while, as lunch was near the end, All Might cleared his throat. "Todoroki, Bakugou, there is something I must say. Since I am Midoriya's unofficial father, I will warn you that bad things will happen if any of you break his heart." Midoriya turned bright red, sputtered, "W's." Todoroki nodded. "All right. I could beat you with one hand behind my back. That won't even matter though because I'll be the best boyfriend ever," Bakugou declared, raising a fist in determination. All Might let out a hearty laugh. "That's good to hear." Soon, lunch was over. "We have to go back to school, but we'll head back here right after class ends," Todoroki promised, kissing Midoriya's forehead. Midoriya nodded and smiled. "All right. I think I'll be all good by the time you guys get back. Remember, don't work yourself too hard, Midoriya," All Might warned, patting Deku's head. "We'll make sure he doesn't, because if he does, I'm tying him to the bed," Bakugou threatened. Midoriya's sweat dropped and held up his hands. "I understand." The three left, leaving Midoriya all alone. He honestly felt better, and to him, it seemed like his fever had completely disappeared. The teen decided that some light weightlifting wouldn't be bad considering it would barely be an exercise to him. With that in mind, he left to go get the weights from his room. Midoriya already started calculating how much time he had to lift weights and get back to Bakugou's room as he headed down to his own room, blanket wrapped around him. When he got to his room though, he paused before opening the door, feeling a draft coming from under his door. He put his ear against the wood, listening carefully. Hearing nothing, he hesitantly cracked the door open and looked inside. No one was there, but the window, which he almost always kept close, was wide open. Midoriya stepped in and looked around. His room was trashed. Everything he had was tossed around haphazardly and all his drawers were open. For a split moment of panic, Deku looked for his journals of heroes. Lifting his mattress, he sighed in relief to see that his journals were still there. Who would break into my dorm? It has to be someone in the school since security has been tightened. Unless, Midoriya's eyes widened as he thought about the villain with the warping quirk. Yes, they had alarms, but they got through them once. Who's to say they couldn't do it again? The villains could be here. I have to tell the others. Midoriya quickly threw on a pair of sweatpants and an old shirt, then ran to the training grounds, where he knew everyone was at the moment. Bakugou tapped his foot impatiently as All Might explained what they were going to do for that PRD. Something about an obstacle course. He could care less. He just wanted the day to be over with so that he and Todoroki could just go back to the dorms and take care of Deku. Todoroki was in the same position, only he was actually paying attention to their teacher. He glanced around, still listening to the instructions, when he saw someone coming toward them. Squinting his eyes slightly, he quickly realized who it was. Izuku. What is he doing here? He asked as he left the group and jogged toward Midoriya. Todoroki. Where are you dash? All Might paused when he followed where Todoroki was looking. Midoriya. Bakugou perked up and ran after Todoroki, passing him and reaching Midoriya first. Stupid Deku, what are you doing out here? If. Not so quietly. The rest of Class 1A started to wander over as Midoriya looked at his boyfriends with worry. I was stopping by my dorm for something, but when I went in, my window was open and my room was torn apart. I know it might be a stretch, but I think it was a villain. All Might was quickly by the teen's side. Are you sure? It would be very hard for a villain to get through security. Midoriya nodded. I know, but there is no reason for anyone else to break into my dorm like that. Plus, there's always that guy with the warp chew dash. Midoriya was cut off by a gasp. I found you. Everyone turned to see a blonde girl standing a few feet away. On her back were canisters with needles coming out of them, and she was wearing a schoolgirl outfit with a cardigan, a scarf, and a mask. Himiko Toga. All Might quickly jumped in front of his students, glaring at the girl. How did you get in here? Himiko Toga giggled and looked past All Might, straight at Deku. I finally found you. I looked for you in your room, but I couldn't find you. She seemed to pout at that. Then she smiled again. I took your shirts because I thought that I wouldn't be able to find you today, but I did. Let's be friends now so that I can take you back with me and I can see you bleed more. At that moment, everyone, even Mineta, felt a sudden surge of protectiveness as they moved in front of the green-haired teen. Bakugou and Todoroki were right in front of the Deku Protection Squad along with the number 1 hero. You'll have to kill us if you want to even touch him. Bakugou growled, glaring daggers at the girl. Todoroki was silent, but his body screamed that he wouldn't let her touch his boyfriend. Really, Toga? This is why you dragged me? Just because you had a silly crush? The hero and students tensed when a new villain appeared beside Toga in a purple light, just like 𝗬𝗓𝗏. Her hair was purple and pulled into a loose ponytail, and her mouth and nose were covered by a tight, black mask. She wore a tight purple sleeveless top with a cleavage window and black slacks. For shoes, she had black flats. Whoa, she's hot. Mineta yelled. This earned him a lot of glares, including one from the villain. The villainess glared at him. First, you can call me 𝗵𝗲𝗄. Second, I'm in a nice relationship with my girlfriend, so don't even think you have a chance. Toga giggled. 𝗬𝗏𝗏, you're here. 𝗵𝗲𝗄 glared at Toga and yelled, Idiot, don't use my real name. That's what aliases are for. She sighed and cleared her throat. Anyway, why did you drag me here just so you can kidnap your newest crush? Because I can't beat them on my own and you're so cool. Please help me get him 𝗬𝗏𝗏. I promise I'll keep this one alive. Toga begged, pointing at Midoriya. Like hell we'll let you take our boyfriend. Bakugou snapped, Todoroki nodding in agreement. 𝗵𝗲𝗄 sighed. Fine, I'll give you 5 minutes. Just because I need to train anyway. Only 5 though. She then turned to face the students and hero. She smirked. What better practice than against the number 1 hero, All Might? I don't know why you think you'll get away with breaking in here and trying to kidnap one of my students, but I'll show you just how wrong you are. All Might got into a fighting position, ready to beat up some baddies. Go get the other heroes? Said student nodded and rushed off, using his speed to quickly leave for the school building. Meanwhile, Midoriya was thinking about why all of this had to happen to him. He was also studying 𝗵𝗲𝗄. If her power was portals like how 𝗬𝗓𝗏𝗏's were, then why was she called 𝗵𝗵𝗄? Said villain calmly walked forward, staring at All Might. Your quirk makes you super strong, right? I wonder it's like. She stared into All Might's eyes, her own turning bright pink. All Might glared back at her. What are you doing? If you're going to fight, then fight. He knew that he was getting close to his time limit, and wanted to get this over with quickly. He didn't want to underestimate these villains though. 𝗵𝐵 smirked and her eyes went back to their original brown. Core copied. Before anyone could react, she moved with great speed to All Might and sent him flying back with a punch. Midoriya's eyes widened. She can copy people's quirks? Noda. I was pretty sure my name implied that. 𝗵𝐵 responded. Anyway, anyone else wanna come spar? I really want to test this quirk. She grinned but was quickly met with All Might's fist as he came back at her. The two started sparring, sending out shockwaves from their punches and kicks. Meanwhile, Toga tried to sneak behind everyone while 𝗵𝐵 had them distracted. She giggled to herself at the observation that everyone's attention was drawn away from her thanks to the fight and 𝗵𝐵 herself. Just as she was about to approach Midoriya though, she was pinned to the ground suddenly. You didn't think we forgot about you, do you? 𝗬𝗏 smirked as she pinned Toga down, putting her full weight on the villain. Toga smiled and her eyes sparkled as she looked up at the girl on top of her. 𝗬𝗏. Of course, how could you forget about one of your friends? 𝗬𝗏 shook her head and sweat dropped. We're not friends. You're literally trying to kidnap one of my best friends so that you can torture him and possibly kill him. Enough with the chit-chat. Bakugou squatted down in front of the villain, his hands crackling with mini explosions. You think you can just threaten one of my boyfriends and get away with it? Toga's eyebrows furrowed. One of your boyfriends? You mean my sweet Midoriya is not single? He's not yours, and he never will be, Todoroki spoke, ice starting to spread on his right side. Yeah, I'm my own person. I don't even really know you, besides the fact that you tried to kidnap Kaken, Midoriya spoke up, standing next to his boyfriends. Toga gasped and smiled. You remember me. And it's okay that you have two boyfriends. I don't mind sharing you as long as I get to do what I want with you. Midoriya paled. No thanks. I'm good. Bakugou growled. Hell no. Toga sighed. Well, I did offer. 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Help me please. Why are you like this? 𝗵𝐵 yelled out, dodging a punch then rushing to help the other villain. She quickly grabbed Toga and jumped away with her just in time to dodge a punch from All Might. Toga grinned and hugged her. Thank you. 𝗵𝐵 grumbled and rolled her eyes. Alright, it's been 5 minutes, we're leaving. Toga frowned. But I haven't gotten him yet? 𝗵𝐵 face-bombed. You know what? Fine. She threw Toga high up in the air, then rushed back at the students. All Might tried to cut her off, but she slid in between his legs and kicked him down. She continued to the students and jumped over them, straight for Midoriya. Todoroki quickly threw up an ice wall to cut her off while Bakugou jumped at her, sending explosions her way. 𝗵𝐵 cursed and kicked the ice wall so that it broke, moving her body to dodge the explosions. She grabbed onto what she thought was Midoriya and jumped back, catching Toga just as she fell back down. 𝗵𝐵 looked down and noticed that it wasn't Midoriya she grabbed, but instead Mineta. Mineta looked up at her and grinned. Wrong person. She groaned and threw him back at the group, then runs away with Toga, who was whining about not getting her prize yet. Everyone relaxed once they were out of sight. Todoroki, Bakugou, 𝗬𝗏, and All Might quickly crowded around Midoriya, asking him if he was okay. Midoriya sighed. Yeah, I'm fine. I think I'm going to stay in Bakugou's room a little longer though. Midoriya sighed as he tidied up his room. Todoroki and Bakugou were both in his living room, tasked with not leaving him alone. After the other heroes arrived and the mess was sorted out, it was ordered that there be tighter security and that Midoriya was not to be left alone for a few weeks. The last thing the boys' boyfriends were happy to help with, declaring that they would never leave him alone again. Midoriya sighed again and started gathering some clothes. He was going to be living in Bakugou's dorm for a while, and from the bag that Todoroki had, he assumed that he would be too. Midoriya finished packing, knowing that he could just come back if there was anything he needed. He stood and stretched, coughing a little. He was still sick, and it seemed like he got slightly worse thanks to the stress from earlier. He tried to hide it though, not wanting to worry anyone further. Midoriya left his room to see Todoroki and Bakugou cuddling on the couch. He froze, trying not to make a sound as he silently gushed over his boyfriends. He took out his phone and sneakily took some pictures of them. He could only get the back of them though. Deciding that one good picture of them is better than a bunch of the back of them, he silently activated his quirk. Midoriya quickly jumped in front of them, took a few pictures, then ran away. Deku. Bakugou yelled as he jumped up and chased after the green-haired teen. Todoroki sighed and got up. He waited, then threw out his arms and grabbed Midoriya, holding him close. Midoriya, you shouldn't use your powers till you're not sick anymore. Midoriya looked up at Todoroki, pouting slightly. But I feel fine. He held back a cough and ignored the fact that he was feeling sore all over. Bakugou flicked Midoriya's forehead. Half and half is right. And don't take random pictures of us. Midoriya laughed slightly, rubbing his forehead. But you guys looked so cute. I needed a new phone background anyway. Bakugou growled. Don't you dare. Midoriya sighed in content and snuggled more against Bakugou. Todoroki was asleep on the other side of him, leaning against Deku. Bakugou was also asleep, snoring and leaning all of his weight on the green-haired teen. Midoriya didn't mind being sandwiched between his boyfriends. He enjoyed it in fact as he continued watching the movie that they had been watching. When it came to an end though, he decided that it was time to go to sleep and slowly got up, trying not to disturb the sleeping teens. He then picked up Todoroki and carried him to bed, then went back for Bakugou. After tucking the two in, he brushed his teeth, then laid next to them. Midoriya closed his eyes, ready to go to sleep. After half an hour though, he realized that he was still wide awake and wouldn't be able to go to sleep for a while. Midoriya got up and put on some sweatpants and a loose t-shirt, then left the dorm. He knew that they now had heroes patrolling around the grounds at night, so he did his best to avoid them while making his way to the track. He didn't get far though till a hand grabbed his shoulder. Hey, what are you doing? Midoriya froze and looked up to see Aizawa-sensei standing there with a flashlight pointing down. He let himself relax slightly. I couldn't sleep, so I was going to do some light jogging to tire me out. Aizawa nodded. Follow me. He turned around and started leading Midoriya in the direction of the track. Midoriya followed obediently, hoping that he wasn't in too much trouble. He looked around and noticed that they were actually passing the track. Instead, they were headed to the forest. Aizawa-sensei. Where are we going? Aizawa glanced back at him. You'll see. They continued walking until they were semi-deep into the woods. Aizawa suddenly stopped and turned to face Midoriya. You know, you're a little too trusting. Midoriya's eyebrows furrowed. Wadash. The next thing Midoriya knew, he was on the ground, and his teacher was pinning him down. Aizawa started giggling as his skin started melting. Midoriya watched in horror as his teacher's skin melted away, revealing Toga instead. Hi Izuku-kun. Midoriya mentally cursed his luck. How did you dash? As long as she ingests someone's BLD, she can copy their appearance. We happen to have some of your teacher's BLD, so we made use of it, 𝗵𝐵 spoke up, appearing behind Toga. Midoriya tried to get up. 𝗵𝐵 stepped on his 𝐒 and kept him down. Not really the best idea to go off on your own when you're sick. She smirked. Oh, I can't wait till I can take you home and cut up your appealing skin, Toga trilled, dragging her nails down Midoriya's cheek, drawing some BLD. Midoriya summoned all for one, green and red light appearing on his skin. Oh, let's not do that, 𝗵𝐵 spoke up, canceling Midoriya's quirk with the quirk she copied from Aizawa. You're my shield from Toga when she wants to cut someone's skin. Toga giggled. But you love when I do it, Hyde-can? No, I don't. And neither does my girlfriend, 𝗵𝐵 deadpanned. While the two villains went back and forth, Midoriya went over his options. He could call for help, but were there even any heroes nearby? And who knows what the two girls would do if he did? He could try to fight, but if 𝗵𝐵 had Aizawa's quirk, then she would just keep canceling one for all. Luckily though, he didn't have to do either. A wall of ice suddenly appeared, shooting at the two villains. 𝗵𝐵 grabbed Toga and Midoriya and jumped out of the way. She held Midoriya in front of herself, using him as a shield. I thought he was alone. He was. Toga yelled. Midoriya smiled as two familiar silhouettes emerged, both of them figuratively and literally burning with anger. It was just a normal day in Class 1A. At least, it should have been. Kirishima was sitting at his desk, talking to Bakugou, when Kaminari burst into class and went straight up to him. "I saw you hanging out with 𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 yesterday." The class turned their attention to the blonde and redhead and gasped. Kirishima jumped up, sweating nervously. "But Denki, it's not what you think. I won't hesitate, beach." Kaminari screamed, summoning his lightning and shooting it at Kirishima. Kirishima fell to the floor, twitching from the electricity. Everyone went back to whatever they were doing and just left him there. Today was not a normal day. Everyone was in hiding at UA. Classrooms were locked, lights were turned off, and blinds were drawn. Everyone was in fear, for it was the 4th of July, and there was one teacher who was a proud American. All Might. Everyone watched through cracked open blinds and doors as the hero stood outside, dressed in a white tank top and American flag shorts, holding a giant American flag. He was blasting some American music and has behind him a machine that was shooting off smallish fireworks. One brave student, Izuku Midoriya, had tried to calm down the American, but he ended up being caught up in the fray and now stood confused in American apparel. From then on it was decided that everyone would just have to wait it out till July 5th rolled around and pray for the poor boy who got taken hostage. Midoriya sat at one of the computers in the computer room, typing away. He stumbled upon a site where he could illegally download All Might videos, and he was taking advantage of it. Spotted Bakugou and Todoroki a little ways away and decided to share what he had found. Hey, come look at this site." The two got up and looked at Midoriya's screen. Bakugou grinned. "Oh cool. Can you download one of his earliest fights?" He was impressed by his cute boyfriend. Yeah, hold on." Midoriya went to work downloading the fight. Todoroki watched with a questioning look. "Is this legal?" "Probably not," Midoriya admitted. Suddenly, the door to the room was kicked down, causing them all to turn and looked as Ida charged in, holding a stapler like a gun. "Everyone stop it and put your hands up," he yelled. The three boyfriends immediately threw their hands up, panicking except for Todoroki. "What did we do?" Midoriya asked, looking at the stapler like it was actually a weapon. "You know it's illegal to download copyrighted videos," Ida casually explained. "I'm taking you three in." "But I didn't dash," Todoroki started to say, before being cut off by Ida, who was lifting Deku from the chair. "We're leaving now," Ida yelled, starting to drag Midoriya to the door. The other two sighed in defeat and followed. Shinso was almost always tired. That wasn't any secret. However, his tiredness sometimes caused him to make mistakes. One example is right now. Shinso was walking down the halls when he bumped into Class 1 as teacher, Aizawa. In a moment of stupidity and who knows what else, he looked up at the teacher and asked, "Daddy?" Aizawa scoffed and looked offended. "Do I look like your dash?" Everyone in Class 1A and 1B appeared and screamed, "Yes." Bakugou swore as he ran toward the school building, cursing his boyfriends for not waking him up. He started using his quirk to go as fast as Sonic, then instead of going into the school like a normal person, used his explosions to fly into the air and into the classroom's open window. The class was caught off guard by his sudden appearance, staring at him in confusion. It was Kirishima though that broke the silence as he gestured at Bakugou's feet and yelled, "What are those?" Bakugou looked down and cursed for the 100th them. In his rush, he had forgotten to change his shoes and was instead wearing his All Might slippers. Midoriya, taking pity on his boyfriend, said, "Kakin, did you accidentally put on my slippers?" Bakugou growled. "Yeah, because you and half didn't bother to wake me up so I had to rush to school." "Oh, that's what we forgot," Todoroki said thoughtfully. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Midoriya asked, looking at his three companions questioningly. "Relax, this is going to be hilarious," Kaminari reassured, putting on some oversized sweatpants. "If we get in trouble I'm blaming you too," 𝗧𝗵𝗲 mumbled, doing the same as Kaminari. "Trust me, this isn't my first time doing this." Kirishima grinned, pulling his sweatpants over his head and bending over so that it looked like he was just legs with a head. "What should I yell?" Deku asked, making sure the settings were right on his 360 camera and attaching it to the hat on his head. I don't know, just scream I guess. Scream like Bakugou was about to eat your 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏, Kaminari suggested, making sure he looked good. Midoriya's face went blank. I wouldn't be the one screaming. The trio in sweatpants shuddered. All right then anyway, let's just get this over with. 𝗧𝗏 and the others got into position as Deku went to the door of the bathroom. Making sure everyone was ready, Midoriya took a deep breath, then burst out of the bathroom screaming. That immediately got everyone's attention as he ran down the halls. Not far behind, the other three had left the bathroom and were chasing him. Things were going well as Midoriya caught people's reactions on tape as he was chased. There was one thing though that they forgot to count for in their plan. You see, Midoriya's screams went noticed by everyone, including his two boyfriends. The next thing 𝗧𝗏, Kaminari, and Kirishima knew they were on the ground being scorched and frozen. On the bright side, Deku got good footage. Midoriya and Todoroki sat on the edge of the pool, talking about random things. Bakugou had been making cannonballs into the pool with Kirishima, seeing who could make the biggest splash. Midoriya had been the one to suggest that they go to the pool that day, just wanting to have a fun time with his boyfriends. He would deny it, but he also wanted to see the two boys shirtless. Little did he know, the other two had the same thoughts, which is why they all agreed to go to the pool. The others in the class had found out about their plans and decided to invite themselves along, but they had the decency to let them have alone time together and not bother them. So, everything was going good, till Deku noticed that Bakugou was carrying something shiny. Hey, Kaken, let me see what you have. Everyone looked at Bakugou as he grinned and held up the object. A knife. No. Deku and Todoroki screamed, running after their boyfriend around the pool. Todoroki turned and reached out, expecting to touch Midoriya, but was just met with empty air. He sat up and looked around, but he didn't see his green-haired boyfriend. He heard a door close and jumped up, making Bakugou wake up. Whatcha doing Shoto, he mumbled, sitting up and yawning. Izuku left the dorm, Todoroki replied, quickly getting dressed and throwing Bakugou some clothes. What? Bakugou sprung out of bed, putting his clothes on in record time. That idiot. Todoroki sighed. He knows he needs to be with someone else at all times. The two hurried out of the dorms to look for their boyfriend. It wasn't long before they found him entering the woods with who they thought was Aizawa-sensei. Todoroki relaxed. Oh, he's with Aizawa-sensei. Bakugou growled. I guess we worried for nothing, but still, he should have told us he was going to meet up with Aizawa-sensei. What are they doing though? Izuku still shouldn't be working out when he's sick, Todoroki said, starting to walk toward the woods. Bakugou nodded, grinning slightly. Let's go spy on them. The two boyfriends headed in the direction the other two had gone, using Todoroki's flames to offer a little light. When they finally spotted the others though, what they saw made their blood boil. Midoriya pinned to the ground by the two villains from earlier. Todoroki sent a wall of ice at the villains, watching as they dodged with Midoriya in their clutches. His left side was burning with fire, and he could see Bakugou's hands crackling with small explosions. Midoriya smiled at them. Kaken. Shoto. 𝗵𝗵𝗲 groaned. Our friendship is not worth this Toga. I don't plan on dying today. Toga sighed. Yeah, I don't think we'll win right now. Oh well. Release Deku, now. Bakugou growled out. As Todoroki was preparing another ice attack, Toga did something that caused Bakugou and Todoroki see red. She pulled Midoriya close and kissed him. Midoriya tried to push her away, but she held him close. Toga pulled away from him with a grin. I'll see you later, Aizu. 𝗬𝗲𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. Bakugou rushed forward to blast Toga with one of his explosions, but 𝗵𝗵𝗲 had jumped away with the girl and they fled. Bakugou sent an explosion their way and was going to follow them, but he felt a tug on his arm. He looked back to see Midoriya, who was looking down with tears in his eyes. Bakugou kinda deflated and hugged Midoriya tight. Todoroki also hugged them, stroking Midoriya's hair. It's okay now, Izuku. We're here. Footsteps caused the three to look up as present Mike, Aizawa, All Might came running at them. All Might was the first to reach them and he looked them over. Are you three alright? We found Aizawa tied up in a closet. He told us that two villains had ambushed him, then we heard explosions coming from over here. Todoroki nodded. One of them disguised themselves as Aizawa sensei and lured Izuku out here. They then attacked him and tried to kidnap them. I couldn't sleep, so I was going to do a light jog around the track to tire me out. I thought it would be fine since the teachers were patrolling around, but Midoriya shook his head and buried his face in Bakugou's shoulder. I'm going to murder those, Bakugou shouted, holding Midoriya closer. Todoroki nodded, silently agreeing with Bakugou and hugging them both closer. Present Mike sighed. This is a mess. All Might will take you three back to the dorms while Aizawa and I will look for the villains. Bakugou and Todoroki nodded, then both held Midoriya's hands as they were led back to their dorms by All Might. Said hero kept glancing back at them, a worried look on his face. Did anything else happen? Midoriya gulped and nodded, glancing at both his boyfriends. Bakugou growled, clenching his free hand. That beach had the audacity to kiss Deku? Todoroki squeezed Midoriya's hand. We're never letting them near Izuku again. Midoriya squeezed both of their hands. I'm sorry. All of them stopped to look at Midoriya. What the hell are you apologizing for? Bakugou asked. I wasn't able to defend myself. I should have been stronger, Midoriya replied, briefly wiping his eyes. Izuku, you're sick and probably are tired. Of course you aren't going to be as strong as when you're healthy and awake. Just rest and get better, and then you'll be stronger than Katsuki again. Todoroki kissed Midoriya's cheek. Hey, no one's stronger than me. Bakugou yelled, tiny explosions appearing on his hands. He's right though, Deku. Just get better and you'll be strong again. All Might nodded. I agree, young Midoriya. Just keep training. Soon you'll even be able to use 100% of one dash. He cut himself off by covering his mouth, realizing what he almost said. Midoriya's eyes widened. He always thought he'd be the one to slip up, but instead, it was actually All Might. Bakugou and Todoroki raised an eyebrow. 100% of one what? Todoroki asked. Midoriya and All Might shared a look, not knowing what to say. You're the one who gave Deku his quirk. Bakugou looked thoughtfully. It all makes sense now. Gave him his quirk. You mean? Todoroki's eyes sparkled. Was his headcanon finally coming true? No, I'm not All Might's secret love child. Deku yelled. Midoriya, how much did you tell young Bakugou? All Might whispered to Midoriya. Just that my quirk was given to me, Midoriya whispered back. I kinda had to since he knew me since childhood. All Might thought for a second. Do you trust them with the knowledge of One for All? Midoriya didn't even hesitate before nodding. I trust them. Oi, what are you two whispering about? Bakugou asked, getting impatient. He and Todoroki were both staring at the hero and their boyfriend, brimming with curiosity. Midoriya took a deep breath and stood straight, facing his boyfriends. There's something that I haven't really told you two about my quirk. I trust you guys enough with the truth though. Go on, Todoroki said. First of all, Midoriya proceeded to explain his quirk and the history of it as they traveled back to the dorms. It had been a week since the two villains had tried to kidnap Midoriya. True to their words, Bakugou and Todoroki hadn't let Midoriya out of their sight. It could have been worse though. The first few nights they had wanted to tie Deku to the bed to make sure he didn't leave in the middle of the night. Midoriya was glad he was able to talk them out of it. Luckily Midoriya had quickly gotten over his sickness and was back to peak condition. He was able to train again under Bakugou, Todoroki, and All Might's supervision. Now that his boyfriends knew the nature of his quirk, they worked hard to help him train so that he could use more than 5% of One for All. Of course, when news spread about Midoriya almost being kidnapped spread, Class 1A became the Midoriya Protection Squad, led by Todoroki, Bakugou, and Uraraka. Everyone made sure Midoriya was safe, as he was the class cinnamon roll along with Kirishima. At first, Midoriya didn't really mind. He was glad that his friends cared about him so much, especially considering his childhood. It started to get annoying though when Midoriya couldn't even go to the bathroom without at least two people, usually Bakugou and Todoroki, following him. At least he could really push himself with the fitness test today. Midoriya started his usual analytical mumbling as he dressed in the gym shorts that all the other guys were in. The females had shorts and tight shirts. As Midoriya stepped out of the changing room though, still mumbling, he was surprised to see his class staring at him in shock. And Midoriya, Where did those muscles come from? 𝗧𝗏 asked. Midoriya tilted his head and looked down at himself. He was actually really buff due to all his training. I've always been like this. Since the beginning of the year. We can vouch for that, Todoroki spoke up. Wow. You wouldn't think it with how he looks with the uniform, Ishido commented, looking Midoriya over. The other girls agreed, kinda wishing that Midoriya was single at the moment. Some of the guys were actually thinking the same thing. Midoriya himself started to get a little uncomfortable with all the staring. So, we should get going, right? Don't want to make Dad might wait. Midoriya awkwardly laughed and hurried to the door. Dad might, most of the class questioned. I still say he's All Might's secret love child, Todoroki commented. I am starting to agree with that, Mineta agreed. The rest of the class, minus Bakugou, nodded. Thanks to the fact that people weren't allowed to use their quirks during the testing, Midoriya managed to come out on top next to Bakugou. Although, if they were being honest, Midoriya definitely won. Everyone was surprised by how physically fit the boy was, especially with how small he was in his school uniform. After the test, almost everyone was asking Midoriya how he got that fit and what his training was like. Well, I started by changing my diet and cleaning an entire beach of trash. It was really hard at first, but thanks to all of my trainer's guidance, I was able to tough it out. Midoriya was glad he managed to catch himself. That's so cool. Uraraka's eyes sparkled. I bet you could bench press anyone in this class. Kaminari grinned. Midoriya blushed shyly. I don't know about that. He glanced at Todoroki and Bakugou, who were whispering to each other. This made the green-haired teen suspicious. Hagakure gasped. I bet he could bench press All Might. That would be so manly. Kirishima, before Deku could protest, called out to All Might. All Might sensei, come over here so that we can see if Midoriya can bench press you. The American hero walked over with a curious look. What about young Midoriya? We want to see if he can bench press you, Karo? Tsuyu answered. All Might laughed. Young Midoriya is certainly strong, but I am very heavy with all of my muscle. Midoriya nodded. I don't think I could even lift him. You're both being wimps. Bakugou yelled as he brought over a bench for All Might to sit on. Come on, let's see. All Might and Midoriya shared a questioning look. Midoriya sighed. I'll try if All Might is alright with it. I guess there is no harm in trying. All Might sat down on the bench, not necessarily thinking that Midoriya could do it without his quirk. Midoriya cracked his fingers and rolled his shoulders, then bent down to grab the bench. Everyone watched with bated breath as Midoriya took a deep breath, then tried to lift the bench. Surprising All Might and himself, Midoriya lifted up the bench and held it above his head. This caused the other classes and a few of the teachers to wander over as Midoriya was able to push the bench up and down, benching All Might. His boyfriends were certainly impressed along with everyone else. After counting 20, Midoriya set the bench down and relaxed, rolling his shoulders. All Might stood and patted Midoriya's head. That was certainly impressive, my boy. I'm proud of you. Midoriya blushed and smiled. He always felt giddy when his father figure praised him. Thank you. Midoriya was soon crowded by people praising him and questioning him. He started to feel a little overwhelmed by all the attention, not used to it at all. Luckily it was Aizawa to the rescue. Oi, class is over. Go back to your dorms or whatever you brats usually do, he said while lying down in his sleeping bag. Everyone started to leave except for Class 1A. It was then that Yaoyorozu thought up an idea. Hey, since we're all being really protective of Midoriya, let's have a sleepover. That way we can all watch over him and we'll get to bond. Midoriya barely held back his protest. That sounds great. Mineta agreed, grinning. You're getting tied up, Karo? Tsuyu glared slightly at the small pervert. He shrugged. That's fair. And so, that's how all of Class 1A ended up with sleeping bags in the common area of their dorm building. Snacks were made and drinks were brought, along with several party games and even a few movies. Of course, though, one of the first games they decided to play was Truth or Dare. It started off fairly tame, but it soon began to go off the crazy end. Especially when Bakugou spun the bottle and it landed on Todoroki. All right, half and half, Truth or Dare? Bakugou asked, looking to his left at one of his boyfriends. Todoroki thought for a second. Truth? Alright, I've been wondering this for a while, and I know Deku has too even if he won't mention it, Bakugou said, smirking at his other boyfriend, who grew nervous. What kinda do you have? Almost everyone tried to hold back laughter as Midoriya turned bright red and Todoroki gave Bakugou a blank stare. What is a KNK? Everyone froze. They almost couldn't believe it. After the shock wore out though, everyone besides Ida, Uraraka, Koda, Tokoyami, Shuji, and Midoriya were laughing. We'll find out eventually. Your turn to spin Shoto. Bakugou passed the bottle to Todoroki, who in turn spun it. Midoriya gulped as the bottle slowed and landed at him, but then relaxed remembering that it was Todoroki. I'll go with dare. Todoroki nodded. Alright. I dare you to play the most recent song that you listened to. Midoriya froze. 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐳? Bakugou rolled his eyes. I bet it's just going to be some uplifting CRP. Go on and play it. Midoriya nervously pulled out his phone and went to the music app. Everyone was betting that it was going to be some happy and cheerful music, but they were wrong. Oh, so wrong. Everyone was surprised when Midoriya hit play and they were immediately hit with, "You've got me shaking from the way you're talking. My heart is breaking but there's no use crying. What a cyanide surprise you have left for my eyes. If I had common sense I'd cut myself or curl up and die." Midoriya shut off the music, looking down and avoiding people's stares. Finally, Tokoyami spoke up. Sarcasm. Nice choice. The rest of the slumber party was spent having fun with games, movies, and just hanging out. Finally, it was time to go to bed and practically everyone forced Midoriya to be in the middle of their sleeping bags. Also, true to Tsuyu's words, Mineta was tied up and put off a little farther from the group, which he understood. Bakugou and Todoroki, of course, laid their sleeping bags on either side of Midoriya. The teen himself though started thinking back on the years and how so much had changed. Midoriya, why are you crying? Midoriya snapped out of his thoughts and felt his cheek. Just like Ojiro had pointed out, he was crying. Midoriya chuckled and wiped his eyes. Sorry, I was just thinking about my past and how much things have changed. Ever since I was announced quirkless, I was avoided, mocked, bullied, and only had Kaken as a sort of friend. But now, I have so many wonderful friends that are actually willing to sleep on a hard floor in sleeping bags just to make sure I'm safe. Midoriya couldn't help it as more tears started flowing. Midoriya. Uraraka jumped up and hugged Deku, starting to tear up as well. Before they knew it, everyone got pulled into a huge group hug, even though some people weren't really the hugging type. Excuse me, but what do you mean by Bakugou sorta being your friend? Oyama asked. Bakugou and Midoriya both froze at the question as the group hug disbanded. They shared a look. Bakugou eventually sighed and growled. I was the nicest person to Deku. Midoriya nodded, but quickly added, but he's a great boyfriend now and I wouldn't trade him or Shoto-kun for anything. Everyone could believe those things. They remembered how Bakugou acted when they first met him and they could see how affectionate Midoriya was with his boyfriends. Still, though, this made everyone wonder the true extent of how Bakugou treated Midoriya, Todoroki especially. He decided that it was better to ask them later in privacy. Everyone settled down for sleep, some already starting to drift off. Of course, someone took this moment to make everyone have deep thoughts. We all die. You either kill yourself or get murdered, Tokoyami spoke up. Everyone turned and stared at the Birdman in concern, till Midoriya commented. Technically, he's not wrong. After a night of questionable sleep, the first few people up decided to be useful and used the dorm kitchen to cook breakfast for everyone. Those few were Todoroki, Midoriya, Ida, Yaoyorozu, Ojiro, and Shoji. They made a surprisingly good team, casually talking while cooking a big breakfast. Midoriya couldn't help himself though and started asking everyone in-depth questions about their quirks. The others didn't mind and answered his questions to the best of their abilities. So you really memorize all of those recipes? Midoriya asked Yaoyorozu, eyes sparkling and in awe. Said girl blushed slightly and rubbed the back of her head. Oh yeah. I started as soon as my quirk manifested. Midoriya nodded and started mumbling to himself, producing a notebook out of nowhere and writing in it. Everyone's sweat dropped slightly at that. Ojiro looked over his shoulder at the notebook. So, how many of these do you got? Midoriya paused and looked at him, smiling. This is my 14th one. I've always wanted to be a hero ever since I was little. I started taking notes on different heroes' strategies and quirks so that I could take what they did and apply it to different situations. Honestly, I've gotten good enough that I can predict the outcome of anyone's fight. Yaoyorozu looked surprised. Really? So we could name 2 heroes or villains, and you could tell us who would win? Midoriya shrugged. Pretty much. I know it's not really that impressive and it can be annoying at times, but it's just become a habit of mine. What? Why would that not be impressive? Ida asked. Oh well, Kaken used to tell me that it was stupid dash. I mean he doesn't do it anymore. But he used to, Midoriya confessed. It was silent for a second, but then, surprisingly, Shoji spoke up. Lady versus present Mike? Midoriya smiled and went in depth on why Lady would lose. Everyone who woke up later was surprised to see the feast made by the early risers. People started digging in, saying thanks for the food. Bakugou yawned and scratched his head as he sleepily walked over to his 2 boyfriends. He sat down on Midoriya's free side and leaned against him, still sleepy. Midoriya just smiled and admired him, while Todoroki watched his 2 boyfriends curiously. From what he had been hearing, Bakugou treated Midoriya badly when they were younger, but now they loved each other, along with loving him. It confused him, but he decided that it was for them to tell. Instead, he just leaned against Midoriya along with Bakugou and relaxed, smiling and closing his eyes. Midoriya was content with just sitting and eating while his boyfriends leaned on him till he noticed flashing lights. He looked up to see almost everyone taking pictures of them. He tilted his head curiously, blushing. Is there a reason you guys are taking pictures? I've never seen Bakugou or Todoroki like this. Are they always like this when they wake up? Kirishima asked. Shut up, shitty hair, I'm trying to sleep, Bakugou slurred, not quite awake enough to realize what was going on. Kirishima just laughed and took another picture. Midoriya sighed in content. If he had it his way, things would stay like this forever. Just sitting and eating with all his friends and boyfriends. Of course, things were always changing, and Midoriya had a bad feeling that things were going to go downhill very fast. He was right too. He would soon find that out later that day, which was supposed to be just another day in class with everyone working to be heroes. Villains would stop at nothing to get what they wanted, and Midoriya had all eyes set on him.